Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. I was coming on to TCG Player this morning to take a look at a bunch of collector box prices because it feels more and more like this market, this section of the market, is groaning to a halt. We had some really big upswings earlier in the year, and now it seems like we are consolidating and moving sideways. And I was going to come through and just look at a bunch of what were formerly high flyers, things that had really taken big legs up earlier in the year, and just check and see how they've been doing for about the last month. And then I thought, I can record this and bring all of you guys along. So, first one, call time. Yep, not a lot of movement in the last month. Basically, all I'm looking for here is in the last 1 to 3 months. Is it really going nuts? Well, in the 3 month time frame, we had a period of that, but then in the zoomed in 1 month, it's been a lot more flat. And man, the vertical span on this range is $2. Yeah, so very stable. And this one, even on the 3 month chart, flat to down overall. Okay, Ravnica remastered. So it came down. This one has bounced around a lot just because the number of boxes left in the market has gotten so low. Only 27 left in the market and 29 sold in the last month. So we're likely to see some big gaps up, but I bet before we see those, we'll see a lot more sellers come in and just very slightly undercut to go ahead and take their profits here in the 600s because even as recently as a month or two ago, these were $500 boxes. I mean, gee, the market price got all the way down to 470 2 months ago, and today the lowest ask is 645. So up nearly $200, about 45% in the last 2 months. Bloomborough, okay, so it kind of made a top there and has traced back a little bit in the last 3 months. Foundations, another real high flyer of the last year. So it's up. It's up in the last 3 months. The last 1 month still up pretty nicely. Final Fantasy, I wanted to take a look at this one because man, it hit such magnificent highs. Of course, TCG players' data are messed up there, but on the 3 month plot, we see that it peaked here in the 1450s and it's come all the way back down now to a market price of 1190. Now, the fact that the lowest ask is below the market price means that this is still sinking in price on the short term. So we've probably not hit the bottom on this product yet, where we might turn back around. Tarkir on the 3 month plot, very tumultuous. So another one of these. Let's see, how many are in the market? 197 and 126 sold in the last month. So still a decent amount of supply out there. And this is just the market whipsawing around recently. Wild how it came up this hard, and now it's given back about half of that gain. Fallout boxes on the 3 month timeline, well, they jump up and then they plateau. But again, these are $1,300 boxes, and so your sales rate is going to fall off pretty heavily. I'm pretty sure that's messed up data showing only 3 sold in the last month. Well, actually, it might not be. So it may be that only 3 sold in the last month. Moving on to Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Wow, very nice trend on that one, and a big sales spike here, 8 boxes in that 3 day period just recently. So doing well, even though the number of boxes in the market is down to 32 today and 22 sold in the last month. So that still looks really strong, very thin supply on several of these boxes. So some gaps up to be coming in the near future. Phyrexia, one that, let's go back on the 1 year chart. Yeah, it's not even, doesn't even capture all of the ups and downs of this product in about the last 24 months, but it has been a wild ride for this product. It seemed at one point like it was all of a suddenly totally dried up, and then of course a lot more came out of closets onto the market, but still doing very good. Lowest ask price of $600 right now, 48 in the market. Only 15 sold in the last month, 70 over the last 3 months. But again, you hit this problem where a product becomes rare enough, the price becomes high enough, and the sales rate slows way down because fewer and fewer people are interested in paying that price. Outlaws, this is one that came up very nicely in the recent past. So you see here 6 months ago, it was 207 at the market, and it peaked here about 6 weeks ago at 298, and it's come down about $20. Wild's Veldrain, this had peaked all the way up at about 1,000, and then I think a lot of people took notice and pulled a lot of boxes out of the closet. So more recently, it has not been going up nearly as fast. And I believe, yeah, see, you have some sales in here of the six sold between September 1st and September 7th. You can see one of them sold for $1,200. And so the market price never caught up with the current lowest ask price because the sales volume was too low and the market price is a trailing average of about the last 50 sales. So the market price might never have reflected $1,000, and yet there were boxes transacting even at $1,200 on here. So it's come back down in the sense that the lowest ask price has come back a little bit. So 970 today, once you add that shipping in, compared to boxes having transacted all the way up at $1,200 in the recent months. Strixhaven, 411 today, still moving up nicely over the last 3 months. March of the Machines, this was one back on May 16th when we had the last bonus buck sale. This one looked really good because there was so little inventory left in the market. And yeah, it's done pretty good. So let's find the week of May 16th. And the market price was 309, and today the market price is 405. So yeah, it has moved up 33%. That was one that I put out as a notice to my patrons on the thread for that bonus buck sale that the volume of this left in the market was very, very low and it was likely to make big moves upwards in the near future. And here it did, 33% in the last 5 months. Moving on, Duskmorn, one that kind of came out and surprised us with how hard it moved up in the past. We can see it peaked up here around 460 on the market price, and today it's 420. So this one has been retracing and giving back some of those profits. Edge of Eternities, much more recent, so a little harder to judge on this just because it hasn't had as much time for as many boxes to be destroyed, and it will be under the influence of the TCG expansion lifecycle a lot more than other products. But interesting to see that it's, for now at least, it's bottomed and started to move upwards. So it could be a sign that the supply is tightening a bit. 189 available in the market today and 313 sold in the last month. So that's bullish in and of itself, but I suspect there are still many, many of these boxes available to come to the market. Brothers War, this is the one I talked about probably 4 to 6 to 8 weeks ago that I had a conversation with a patron about how thin the market for these boxes had gotten. And at the time, we were looking at something like 30 or 40 boxes to get us all the way up to $1,000. So we still have some big gaps up here between $500 at this box and $1,000. Well, $1,000, woof, at that box. I just closed it. 1 second. I'll write it and I'll do it live. Reopen the tab and go backwards. There we are. So I had said at the time that there was very, very, oh, come on, TCG player. There was very, very thin market depth to get us back to those kind of prices. And there were a lot of gaps in the future of the Brothers War boxes, and now many more have come out onto the market and slowed down that potential ascent. We're probably looking at something like, summer of next year, maybe we'll hit $1,000 on that box. But you have to keep in mind that was a late 2022 box, and it was actually a very desirable box. It may have been in the time period where print runs were starting to be slashed. We know they were slashed by the time we got to Phyrexia, which was the next standard set after Brothers War. Moving on, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, 267 today. A little bit of a roller coaster here, even when the vertical span on this graph is $60. So it went up, came back down, and is bouncing up again. I would suspect there are still a lot of boxes of this left in the world. If you just look here, 140 listed today and only 80 sold in the last month. So even though this was a late 2021 era product, it was so heavily printed that even now, 4 years later, there are a lot left in the market. It has come up a lot in the last year, A year ago, a market price of 147. So yeah, it's come up 66% in the last year, but I would not expect this to zoom up to $500 or anything anytime soon. And finally, Lord of the Rings Special Edition, because we have to. 2660. A year ago, it was 900, and let's see, the last 3 months, so it's plateauing. That's pretty reasonable. We'll have to wait until the serialized movie poster cards start to move up again. So overall, we can definitely see some of these products are stalling, some are falling, some that have very, very thin market depth are continuing to go up. But overall, we are no longer seeing every product on the rise like we were back during the spring and a lot of the summer. So the market is slowing down. I would not say it is grinding to a halt yet. It is simply decelerating. And at some point, I would expect it to accelerate that deceleration, to increase the deceleration, and to trend mostly sideways with more products going down. Now, we may see that as we get into the holiday season, as spending shifts, as focus on what you're doing in your spare time shifts away from magic and to other priorities in your life. And so we could definitely expect to see a slowdown as people spend money on gifts and vacations in the holiday season, and then in January spend money on paying off the credit card. So definitely not in a screaming bull market like we were earlier in the year. No longer that being the case, but maybe presenting some opportunities. If you were interested, you could go back and look at a couple of these and find ones that have pretty thin market depth on the order of 2 to 4 weeks currently listed. And then you might expect that over the next 3 to 6 months, those would see some pretty good gains upwards. So if I were inclined to start buying boxes off a TCG player here today, that's how I would look at it. So this has just been an impromptu market walk for Magic collector boxes because I thought, hey, it seems like when I look at the overall results page, the prices aren't moving much. And the reality turned out to be that, yep, some are moving up, some are moving down, some are moving sideways, and it is a very much bifurcated market right now. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.